You might remember that last year we revealed how a controversial method of teaching children to read was being used in schools across Wales, despite having been discredited by many experts. Our investigation helped lead to official guidance in Wales being changed. Well, now we've learned that this method, known as queuing, is also being used in parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. In England, children's reading scores have risen steadily after schools were told to stop using queuing 2 decades ago. And now our findings have prompted the Northern Irish government into reviewing its own guidance. But as Rhys Williams reports, there remain concerns that many UK children learning to read are still being set up to fail.
Or even the pockets.
In many parts of the UK, children are being failed. Last year we shared Poppy's heartbreaking story as she started secondary school.
How will she know where she's going? Because obviously she's got a timetable, but she can't read the timetable.
And Poppy's not alone. Wales' Schools Watchdog says up to 30% of children start Year 7 unable to use basic reading skills well. Our investigation found long discredited methods of teaching reading are common in primary schools. Now we found their use in other parts of the UK.
What vowel sounds usually go with our kicking ka then?
This Glasgow school is getting it right. Decades of scientific research shows this is the most effective way of first teaching children to read words. It's called systematic synthetic phonics. These Glasgow kids are learning how letters connect to sounds.
Oh.
But in some schools across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, a method called queuing is also used, where children are encouraged to guess words from pictures or context. But there's no evidence it works. It can actually make it harder to learn.
Every child in Scotland should have the same advantage through a systematic phonics approach.
This head teacher in Glasgow has overseen a dramatic improvement in reading outcomes since she stopped using queuing.
In my experience as a teacher, which is now 30 plus years, I have a guilt about how I previously taught children, and I would think, how on earth did they learn?
What's this word FI?
Queuing can be particularly damaging for children with dyslexia like Thomas, who was so upset at his inability to read compared to his fluent older sister, he told his parents they'd be better off without him. 6 years ago, his mum took him out of his South Ayrshire school to teach him how to read herself, using only phonics to decode the words. He's now fluent.
I remember crying walking through the door. I remember wiping away my tears as I sit down, being handed a sheet of paper for a spelling test, being given a separate one from everyone else. The whole day was around that. It was awful. And that was every day, every day.
He was set up to fail. Every day he went into school, the teachers were not teaching him what I now learned was decoding. He didn't know how to decode words to read them, and he was being taught to guess at words.
We asked to speak with the Scottish Education Minister, but she refused. The government also didn't answer a direct question about whether children should be taught to read using cues. Instead, a spokesman said teachers have freedom in how to teach reading, but said phonics is a key part of its approach. Our investigation took us next to Northern Ireland, a different education system but with many of the same problems. Teaching decoding using phonics and queuing is common, but one undermines the other. Here in Northern Ireland, the government has recognised there's a serious problem and is moving quickly to change things. The Education Minister told me our investigation had made clear to him the need to take action.
Well, I moved last week to remove the strategy that implied queuing was an acceptable form of teaching based upon the evidence that I have heard in England, but also the report that ITN carried out in Wales demonstrated to me that there is a clear challenge as to what's going on within our classrooms. England has moved forward over the past 10 years. We need to make sure that Northern Ireland, from being in a good place, certainly on literacy, I think we can do even more.
In England, child literacy rates have been rising. Across other parts of the UK, there's concern an ineffective mix of methods is leaving the futures of too many children to chance. Rhys Williams, ITV News.